Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. It's been a long and rocky road. On the way, there have been some highs and there have been some lows. Forged in fire, yet we carry on through the wire like Shaka Khan. Returned from the brink at long last. Welcome back to Backlick Cinema, the podcast. I'm your host, Zo. That's Z-O or Z-O for those of you outside of the U.S. It's the 120th episode. Thank you for downloading or streaming. We really appreciate it. We're finally back. We finally get to talk about the movies that I loved when I was growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And with a special guest, we talk about our favorite parts and share a little bit of surprising trivia along the way. If you like what you're about to hear, then please tell your family, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, and tell that down on their luck sports agent about our humble little show, Backlick Cinema, the podcast. And now, as per usual, we have a special guest. This is the first guest that I've managed to snag from the cacophony of TikTok. This guest is enthusiastic about movies and film, and he has some of the most interesting and introspective insights on the film industry, on movies, on TV stars, on movie stars. You need to check it out. His name is Dan. His TikTok channel is called Real Takes. That's at real.takes. And I want to introduce you to him now. Say hello to Dan. Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Really happy to be here. Really excited to talk about this movie. It's one that I really love. So it's really good to be here.
Awesome. And we've gone back and forth. And you have told me that you're really into sports. You're into different types of outdoor activities. So tell our audience once again, what's your favorite sport?
I think it's tough. I think in terms of playing or watching, what would you say?
Well, in terms of playing.
In terms of playing, I'd probably say ice hockey. I played hockey my whole life. Basketball is a close second. Basketball is probably the sport I've played the most of, just in my adult life and everything with my friends. But growing up and then through high school and college, I played ice hockey. It's a sport I love. I know it's, definitely not the biggest, but it's one I really have a lot of respect and love for. So,
oh, that's excellent. I've only put it together now that this is the movie you've chosen, and it happens to be a sports movie, and you love sports. Because it's like you talk about different movies, you go all over the spectrum. I never would have pinned it that a sports movie would be one of your favorite movies. Not until you told me that you were into sports.
Yeah, there's a lot of great options from that list. A whole bunch that I think I would really enjoy talking about, but this is a really, really good classic movie that I think is a lot of fun. So.
Okay, so in terms of watching sports, what are you most into?
It's tough. I honestly really, really enjoy baseball, which is another thing that I think not a lot of people, I guess, maybe in my generation and younger are that into, but I kind of grew up watching it. I would watch basically every Phillies game. I live in Philadelphia, so I'm a Phillies, Flyers, Eagles, Sixers guy. Love all of them, but really love the Phillies. I was able to be there last year when they beat the Braves, and then also I was at the game that sent them to the World Series. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Love the ballpark, love the team, and I enjoy it. It's relaxing for me.
Awesome. So baseball being your main sport you like, and you love the Philadelphia team. As you can tell by the way I'm talking about it, I'm not a sports guy. I'm not into the sports. If somebody or when somebody asks me what my favorite sport is, I tell them it's professional wrestling. That's my sport. And to be totally honest, I don't watch much of it, but I do catch a glimpse of sports sometimes just by being just in the world. It's kind of hard to avoid it, obviously, being in the world. So you end up hearing about sports or events that happen, like track and field had just finished just recently. And so you've heard about some of the things that happen on there. So yeah, it's an incredible place to draw stories for movies and television and film. they make some of my, even though I don't really watch sports, they do make some of my favorite movies.
Yeah, I mean,
And like,
there's such a good base there. Like, there's a lot of emotion and
yeah,
energy and everything. It's really, really good stuff.
yeah, absolutely. So, let's turn over to where I found you. Let's go and take a look at TikTok. See, as my audience knows, and as you're finding out, my questions are very basic, very
Hmm.
not super complicated questions. So, since you have a TikTok chat, I have to ask, why was it movies instead of sports?
You know what? That's a great question. And to be honest, when I first started, I actually planned on having a second account that was basically kind of centered on sports and Philly sports in particular. But as I kind of got into this, I started I think almost, it might be today, I started 3 months ago. So when I first kind of started, I was feeling it out, wasn't exactly sure like how much work went into everything. And I think two accounts for me personally, at least, would be a bit much to handle right now. I have a full-time job. I have, a life. I have other stuff going on. So I decided to just go with the one. But movies are something that I've been passionate about since I was a kid. My family introduced me to a lot of different movies. My friends have always been into movies, so it's something I've always kind of talked about with everyone in my life that I care about. So, yeah, there's just a lot of passion there, and it doesn't feel like work at all. It's just kind of fun for me to talk about.
Yeah, yeah, I feel the same way. It's basically the reason that I started this podcast. So I noticed that you get a lot of feedback from other people who have viewed your videos. So is there a lot of like negative feedback, would you say, or is it about even? Or how is that going on for you right now?
So I think the large majority of it is positive, and my mindset is very much that I don't care at all what movies you like, don't like. Nothing you say about a movie um, is going to personally offend me. I don't care if it's a movie I absolutely love. If you can say you hate it, I want to know why. I want to talk about that with you. I want to get your perspective and put myself in kind of your shoes and see a movie from a different view. And if it's a movie I don't like, I like talking about. Like I had a video about Manchester by the Sea that did really well. I don't. The movie doesn't connect with me, but I got tons of comments there from people saying, "Hey, man, like this really resonated me for X, Y, Z." And there's like, you do get some hate, you do get some just kind of mindless, comments that don't have any thought put into them, and like that's the nature of the internet. But I do enjoy the conversations where someone can kind of shed some light on their viewpoint on a movie, and I can kind of start to understand it. That maybe I rewatch and like try to have that perspective. So I think it's really cool to let your taste in movies change and develop. So it's just been a really fun, mostly positive experience for me so far.
Ah, that's pretty awesome. I'm glad to hear it. I'm super glad that you haven't run into a crush of, I don't know, just bad actors
Yeah.
on the system. So there is talk obviously in government about them trying to shut down this particular social media platform. Have you been active in your politically active in order to try to stem the tide or to change the opinion of some of the people that might want to try to shut it down?
No. And I am definitely, I'm kind of politically inclined. Like I definitely have a lot of strong feelings politically, but I haven't been active personally in that way. I feel like I also am trying to branch out a little bit. Like I do have an Instagram page that I post my stuff on. I would like to get into YouTube, and I think a lot of what I do kind of lends itself more to I'd like to talk a little more about things and go a little more in depth. So sometimes I feel like on TikTok it's a challenge for me to kind of condense my thoughts and try to figure out the best way to summarize and what's important to say, what's not important. So I think I would enjoy more long form, and I'm actually just getting into podcasting myself. So I, I enjoy getting to talk about things in a longer way. But to, long answer, but the short answer is no. I haven't gotten involved personally, but I am aware of all that stuff in the background that's going on.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I'm trying to get more involved in TikTok, but now I'm like, I'm tepid. I'm even more tepid than I was before because of there's a political will to try to disable it. It's already been disabled in one state. And and then there are obviously government agencies that have shut it down for government workers, at least on government equipment. So, but it is, even though like the algorithm for like Instagram, for example, is not as good as the algorithm for TikTok, but at least there's an opportunity to branch out. And then like with YouTube, they have like a version of
Shorts.
TikTok, called Shorts, but you can only record for 1 minute. But then you can record like a regular YouTube video in the same type of format as a TikTok. But I don't know how fulfilling that would be to, somebody who's used to doing it on TikTok, especially since for most people, it's the tools on TikTok that's gratifying. It's more of the different like elements that you use to edit your videos on TikTok that people find appealing more so than just the outlet to express themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think, I don't care so much about, the medium that it's on. I kind of like having that outlet, just like you said. TikTok makes it easy. It kind of lays it out for you very, very simply, and makes it, the beautiful thing about it is that really anyone can do it if you just do a little bit of research and learn a couple things. Like, it's not hard. So I do enjoy that. And there's an ease of entry, but yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I'm too picky in terms of differentiating between, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. As long as I get a chance to express myself in some way, I'm fine with it.
Shoots. Oh, sorry. I used the Hawaiian expression again. That's going to come out sometimes. Shoots means cool. Thereabouts. So anyway, let's get right into the movie. Oh, before we get into the movie, why don't you let us know give us a plug. Let us know. You said you have an Instagram account, so if you have that readily available, I want you to let our audience know about that. And once again, say your TikTok and anything else that you might have that you want people to follow you on.
Sure. Yeah. So Instagram and TikTok, Real Takes, REEL, and then I also am now co-hosting a podcast called Goodwill Podcasting with this guy Connor. His account over on TikTok is Movie Shark. So we're going to be starting up bi-weekly. We've done 2 episodes so far. We talked about Tarantino and Christopher Nolan, and our next one we're talking about The Truman Show and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So that's been fun working on that with him. That's kind of how that was kind of my first experience being on a podcast. So I've enjoyed it, and I'm excited to get more opportunities like this. So yeah, just the TikTok, Instagram, and that podcast so far.
Yeah, you just got a new microphone. Did you buy that for the microphone, or did you buy that under my suggestion?
I was thinking about it for a while, and this was kind of the stimulating force behind that. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of trying it out. I got a little stand here, got a little cover for it. So, I'm hoping it sounds okay, and I can start using it for all my stuff, because I just really been using my my iPhone and stuff so far, and like my computer for the podcast. So yeah, I'm hoping it works out for me.
What's the name of the podcast again?
It's called Goodwill Podcasting, and Goodwill is split up, and we're on I think Apple Podcast, Spotify, and a couple other spots, but mostly on Spotify, and also on YouTube as well.
Yeah. I'm only saying this because you're just starting out, but I found some really good resources on doing podcasts. So one is a podcast called School of Podcasting. That's a pretty good resource. And another one is called The Feed. Hold on. What is it called? The Official Libsyn Podcast. So Libsyn is a podcast provider. Well, it's a podcast host. So a lot of their content kind of caters towards people who are a part of or who have their podcast hosted on Libsyn, but they also have a lot of general advice that's good for everybody. And School of I can't talk anymore. School of Podcasting is great because not only do they have tips, but they also give you an opportunity to promote your podcast. So yeah, check those out. Those are some great resources to learn more about podcasting and whatnot.
Appreciate it.
Let's dig into this movie. So we're going to go over to the next segment. So now we're going to we're in the opening credits. We're going to talk about the movie. So let the audience know what movie we talked about today.
Absolutely. So we're talking about Jerry Maguire. And Jerry Maguire is a sports agent who's on the top of his game, basically getting the most lucrative contracts from the most talented athletes in America. He has a life-changing event. He has a change of conscience and tries to make changes in his company culture that end up getting him fired. So he's on his own, basically only has 2 of his dozens of clients, his 1 assistant, and a goldfish. So he's basically working to rebuild not only his career, but his entire life.
Yeah. What's funny about this movie? I know that I've seen it at least a couple of times, but watching it again, I had no memory of it. I had no idea. It was like watching a new movie all over again. I was like, oh, like the only part that I remember is like the parts that everybody remembers. So there's Show Me the Money and the part where the running back gets knocked down. I remember that part. But most of all the other parts, I don't remember. So it was nice because it was like watching a new movie all over again. And it's like, as I was watching it, I was like, oh, I don't remember this whole romantic element to the movie. It's almost a rom-com.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah, but it's not as funny or as silly as a rom-com, but they do have those elements. And it's not as focused on romance as a rom-com might be. But it was it was cool to be able to see a movie that you saw before, like you seeing it for the first time. So that's cool. So this movie was released on December 13th, 1996, produced by TriStar Pictures and Gracie Film. It grossed over $153 million in the US and Canada, with a worldwide gross of over $273 million on a $50 million budget. And it had great reviews. I remember when this movie came out, people loved this movie. Do you remember the first time you saw it?
Yeah, I saw this when I was relatively young, and it always it kind of leaves an impact on you. But I will say, I completely agree with what you said about kind of feeling like you were watching this for the first time. I think there's a lot of interesting elements to this. There's a lot of like little strange kind of moments that are funny, but just like it feels very unique. It looks very unique in the way it's shot. Like I feel like when it's on, you know exactly what it is as soon as you see a moment from it. And it's very memorable. The really good performances. This is one that's always stuck with me my whole life, really.
Yeah, the performances were definitely outstanding. So let us know. Let's talk about who provided these performances.
Yeah, so front and center is Tom Cruise. He plays Jerry Maguire. He's been in a lot of great movies like Oblivion, Edge of Tomorrow. He's in the upcoming Untitled SpaceX project. He's obviously been all throughout the Mission Impossible series, and he has upcoming also the Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2, following up from Part 1 this year. So he's, needs no introduction really, but he's a legend.
Absolutely. He's great in almost everything he does. And I was trying to look for more stuff that's upcoming, but not a lot, at least being reported right now on as far as upcoming projects. I expected more, Tom, but he's, I guess it's fair to say that he's able to more carefully pick and choose his projects. So he's not just going to go jumping into everything. And I think that this SpaceX project that he's going into, I think I've heard something about this, about him actually going into space. So that's going to be interesting. So up next is Cuba Gooding Jr. He played Rod Tidwell. He's known for Radio, Boys in the Hood, and Men of Honor. I think I first seen him in Boys in the Hood. Yeah. And he definitely leaves an impact. And this is my opportunity to talk about how I once met Cuba Gooding Jr. I seem to talk about this every time I get a chance. So I used to live in Hawaii, and I worked at a hotel that he was staying at as a security. And I was out one night, it was like midnight or something like that. And I was just patrolling the pool area. And then he comes wandering in off the beach to the pool area. It was him, his body double, and their 2 dates. or whatever. It was around the time he was filming Pearl Harbor, and and he kind of walked up to me and we said hello. He said, hello, my name is Cuba. Like, I was just a regular guy. I was like, yeah, my name is Alonzo. And then, nice to meet you. And then he kind of wandered off. It was, it was an interesting meet. What's also interesting is that, he plays, a running back, right? So as a running back, he's a little small for a football player, which is kind of weird because later on he plays OJ Simpson. And I think OJ Simpson is like 6 foot something, but he's being played by Cuba Gooding Jr. And because I know that OJ Simpson is like this gigantic dude and Cuba Gooding Jr. is not, it was very difficult for me to get into that TV series. I don't think I got past the 3rd episode.
Yeah, I never actually ended up getting around to watching that. I was actually just talking to someone about that yesterday, but I never ended up watching it.
Right, right. I mean, it looks really good, but it's like Cuba Gooding Jr. as OJ Simpson takes me right out of it. So who's next on the roster?
So next we have Renee Zellweger. She plays Dorothy Boyd, and you would know her from Chicago, Cold Mountain, or Bridget Jones' Diary.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it seems like she plays a type. So like she doesn't tend to play somebody that's too mean or too evil. Like they specifically get her to play like the nicest person on earth. And only recently has she played like against type like characters that she hasn't played in the past. So she's a very interesting person.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I always love getting to see actors act against their type. I think it's tough when you kind of end up getting cast in the same role over and over again. And that's happened to so many actors over the years. But is there anything that jumps out in your mind as really good from her against that kind of type?
Well, I only mention it because I just recently seen a trailer for a movie that came out last year. I think it was like a miniseries.
Okay.
And I can't remember what channel it's on, but she basically plays a murder suspect. It's based on a true story. So I guess because the murderer was convicted, we don't have to say that she was an alleged murderer, but or a murder suspect. But it was like a complex murder scheme where she murdered somebody and her husband took the blame for it. And then they found the plot where it was actually her that did it. And she plays like a very evil and deceitful person. And I was like, you know what? It's a good look on her. But
I'll have to check that out. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah. I'll look it up, as soon as we finish. So up next is Kelly Preston. She plays Avery Bishop. And she's been in For the Love of the Game, Sky High, and Death Sentence. Interestingly, not a whole bunch of prestigious movies, but she has been in some pretty good ones.
Yeah, for sure. Another kind of supporting actor here is Jerry O'Connell, who plays Frank Cushman. He's been in Stand By Me, Kangaroo Jack, as well as Scream 2. Doesn't have a huge role, but definitely prevalent, and I feel like he plays it really well, and feels like a very real person in this movie. So I appreciated him here.
Yeah, absolutely. He was like, I just want to play football, man. Up next is Jay Moore. He plays Bob Sugar. I know him as a comedian, but you may have also seen him in Go, Pay It Forward, and just recently, Air.
Yeah, what were your thoughts on Air? Did you enjoy it?
I hadn't seen it yet. It looks good, but I hadn't seen it yet. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I have. I enjoy it. I always like seeing stories fleshed out that deserve it and haven't really been dived into yet. I didn't think it was I didn't think it was something I'm going to go back to over and over again, but I'm really happy I watched it. I think it got a little bit overhyped, but I still think it's very good, and definitely worth watching just to know the story. And Viola Davis, I love her.
Yeah.
And she's incredible in it. So, yeah, definitely give it a watch.
Awesome.
Even if you're not a big sports person, like you'll appreciate just kind of the storytelling.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't really see it as being about the sport itself. It's just about them chasing a contract. And so it's some stuff like that is the feeling. It's almost like some of the elements in the movie we're talking about now.
Yeah, it's like the aspect of, the sport's just kind of like an accent on the story. It's not the focus.
Right.
Yeah. But next, Bonnie Hunt is in this. I really enjoyed her as well. She plays Laurel Boyd, who's Dorothy's sister, and she's been in Jumanji, The Green Mile, and also Rain Man. So some absolute classic movies. I really like Bonnie Hunt.
Yeah, she was in one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It was just a very short scene, but it was really funny. I love her like deadpan delivery. She was great in this movie.
Absolutely.
And up next, one of my favorite actors, Regina King. She played Marcy Tidwell. She's been in Ray, If Beale Street Could Talk, and The Harder They Fall. I kind of cheated with The Harder They Fall. When I say I cheated, I really mean to put like movies that have had a theatrical release. But The Harder They Fall is actually a Netflix release, appearing. It was just streaming. But I did see that it had a box office take. So it was released somewhere in the world. It said it was a worldwide gross. So it was released, at least limited internationally. It only did like $8,000. So in a couple of theaters somewhere. So I was like, well, I'm going to put that in here. Yeah. There are times when, go ahead.
I was going to say, did you see the Watchmen series that she starred in? That
yes,
came out on HBO? I love
absolutely. That was great. That's like the best interpretation of Watchmen. It's better than the movie, I guess. That's the only, because there's only been like 2 interpretations: that movie and this TV series.
I don't know if people didn't really watch that, I feel like everyone who did watch it loved it, but I feel like it didn't get talked about as much, and then it didn't get another season. But I thought, in terms of like a limited just story, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Absolutely. Well, it didn't get another season because the showrunner didn't want to do another season. It was like he had a specific story that he wanted to tell, and he told that story, and he said, I'm out. Like HBO was like, you want to go again? And the showrunner was like, no, and he didn't do it. And what's remarkable is that he kind of filled his room with African American writers, somebody who could speak to the experience that the Regina King's character could talk about. So I thought that was good of him to do that, to have minority voices in the room talking for a minority character. So, but that was really good. That was a very strong.
It was amazing, yeah. And telling the story around Tulsa, I feel like that's one of those stories in American history that just people don't talk about. It's just and there's so many of those. I was thinking about this because I was thinking about the new Scorsese movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, and that kind of focuses on another one of those stories from our history that should be something we're learning about, but we just don't. And I love when a show or a movie is able to find those moments and pick them out and say, hey, you should know about this, because just having it as a focal point makes people look into it and educate themselves, and I really enjoy that. So I like that they made that a focus.
Yeah, after the show aired, I don't know if it was a whole state or certain counties in Oklahoma had basically made it part of their history curriculum, because they had not been regularly teaching it or made it an official point to teach that part of their history. And it should be. I mean, and there are lots of types of stories from American history that are like that. There's the thing that comes to mind to me is there are so many insurrections from small state, either state capitals or town capitals that had happened. So one of the main ones I remember reading about was Wilmington, Delaware, how during the Reconstruction era, it allowed Black people to get elected to public office or to serve in Congress as senators and Congress people. And what's funny about that is that a lot of times, you'll hear a Black person getting elected to Congress, and they say, well, this is the first person elected to Congress since the Reconstruction era from this particular state, some southern state like Florida or Georgia or something like that. And they'll say since the Reconstruction era. So, but I think that goes over a lot of people's heads. They don't realize that there were Black people in Congress for a little while after the Civil War, until the states and towns had changed the laws and made it harder for people to serve in that capacity. So there was an insurrection in Wilmington, no, not Delaware, Wilmington, North Carolina. And so there were Black people in office in a state house and in various positions. And they basically came as a huge mob and kind of kicked him out. It was like a for real insurrection. It was a no, it's not even really an insurrection. That's not the wrong word for it. It was a violent coup. That's what it was.
Yeah.
It was like, and so stories like that happen all over America, and definitely more stories that should be told about it. Right now, there's a push to tell a story about Robert Smalls. Are you familiar with him?
I don't believe so. Could you talk about him a little bit? Maybe jog my memory.
So Robert Smalls is, I didn't know about it either. I only recently found out about it. So Robert Smalls, it was a slave, and he worked on, they got him working on a ship during the Civil War, like a Southern battleship or warship. And, he used his skills as a seaman, because he learned how to, what you call it? He learned how to operate a boat. I don't even know what a ship. That's the word I'm looking for. He learned to operate a ship, being on the ship. He learned all the signals, because they didn't have radios, obviously. So you would use hand signals to communicate with people on the shore to let them know you were friendly or not. And then there were a bunch of slaves that served on the ship. So he used his skills and his guile to steal this warship from the South. He sailed it up to the North using all the skills that he learned, and became, and basically that's how he and a group of slaves ran away to the North, by stealing the ship. And he later on, after the war, during Reconstruction era, became a congressman. I don't remember for which state, but he had an amazing life. And
why is that not a movie or like a series? Like, that would be incredible.
Yeah, it would be one of the greatest movies or TV series of all time. But for some reason, because they find like a few people from American history, and they tell stories about those people over and over again. Like Harriet Tubman, they tell Harriet Tubman's story over and over again. They tell Martin Luther King's story a million times. Maybe you might hear a story from Sojourner Truth or something, but they just pick like 3 or 4 people, and they tell those stories. But they could expand this library of stories that just in American history, they're just waiting to be told. So,
well, I feel like that's kind of entertainment in and of itself. Like, they want safe. Like, they want, okay, this people like this, people know about this, it's familiar, it'll make money, it'll get views. Like, that's all people want, safe.
Right.
And I mean, that's an hour-long conversation for another time. That's everything.
So moving right along, what's the last actor we have here?
Yeah, so the last actor is Jonathan Lipnicki. He plays Ray Boyd, and you might know him from like Mike or Stuart Little.
Yeah, so for a short time, he was like everywhere. He's still acting, not in anything that you'll probably see, but he's in TV and small movies or whatnot. But yeah, for a short time, it seemed like he was everywhere. He was like the it kid for a little while. So,
yeah, and he's really good. He's really good.
Like, he's really good. He's quite natural in this movie, and I think that people that he worked with, like everybody that was there on the set, was really taken by him. This what do you call it? Rapunctious? I don't know. I don't know words.
For sure.
Yeah, rambunctious little kid. So moving right along, this was written and directed by Cameron Crowe. He's a writer director. He likes to write and direct his movies. So other movies he's written and directed were Vanilla Sky, also starring Tom Cruise, Almost Famous, Singles, We Bought a Zoo, and Say Anything. I think many people are familiar with Say Anything, except for me. As a matter of fact, I haven't seen any of these movies. I'm almost ashamed.
Yeah, Vanilla Sky is interesting. It's pretty weird. I've seen that a long time ago, and I've also seen We Bought a Zoo. That's fine, but I also haven't seen Say Anything.
Yeah, and that's a classic. Maybe I should check it out.
Yeah.
So, this normally I would have like the composer for a movie, or the music director or something like that. But for whatever reason, and I couldn't find out why, this movie does not have, at least on IMDb, it doesn't have a music director credited or a composer credited. So why don't you let us know some of the songs that were on the soundtrack?
Yeah, so, even though there isn't that composer kind of pulling through the whole musical story, there is, I'd say, pretty strong use of music in this movie. So we have songs like Magic Bus, Live by The Who, Requiem Again by the Durante Column, Pocket of Rainbows by Elvis Presley, and Secret Garden by Bruce Springsteen. There's a lot of fun musical moments throughout the movie, so definitely plays a big role.
Yeah, the only one that really comes to mind for me was the Coltrane cassette, because it was, they made a whole scene about it.
Yeah.
The guy wanted him to play this Coltrane, and I guess Miles Davis and Coltrane. But I couldn't find it in the lists of soundtrack. I couldn't find it. So that was weird. It's like a prominent song in the movie, but it's not listed as part of the music that was used in the movie. So that's weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's it for the opening credits. And if you're enjoying it, so remember that you can get t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, face masks, jerseys, and more at our website, backlickcinema.com/shop. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, so you're on break, right? So you've got a lot of new designs, right? And to that, I answer no, there are no new designs. It's the same old designs from before. So go check it out, refresh your memories, and go get yourself something nice. And up next, we're going to talk about our favorite parts. All right, we're back. We're going to talk about our favorite parts of the movie. So, Dan, we're going to talk about 3 of our favorite parts.
Okay.
So, why don't you? I guess I should have did a preamble. In the run up to the show, when we talked about how the show going to run, I should have explained that to you. That's one of the changes. We're only going to do 3 of our favorite parts, so we're not talking for hours and hours. So.
That's, I definitely have plenty. So 3 is easy.
Right. So tell me 3 of your favorite parts.
Sure. So I'll start out with one relatively early in the movie. So basically, he has a client who's a hockey player. He gets hurt really badly, and there's kind of this confrontation with the guy's son in the hospital. And at this point in the movie, you see Jerry as very slimy, very superficial, very just, focused on getting paid, and just kind of very much in the industry, and kind of he's lost touch with his humanity. And he has this confrontation with the kid's son, who's basically asking him hey, my dad's had 4 concussions, can you talk to him and be like, hey, maybe stop playing, slow down your career, stop trying to get that next paycheck, focus on your health. And this kid is very real with him, and just kind of tells it like it is. And I enjoy that moment, because that's kind of the catalyst for, all the growth that we see, even though it's slow growth from this character throughout the movie, comes from that conversation. So that's a moment I really love, and that kind of goes into him writing this, this literature that he gives to his whole workplace that ends up getting him fired. So it kind of gets the wheels turning there. So I really enjoy that. I think another moment I really like is when he's walking out with Cuba Gooding Jr. after a game, and he's kind of at a low point. It's after he marries Renelle Zellweger's character, and you can tell he's feeling a bit lost. He's not really certain that he made the right choice. He's I like this character so much because there's a lot of depth to him that you might not remember or realize, but when you rewatch it, you really see him kind of going through it this whole movie. But basically, the thing I like about his relationship with Cuba is they keep it very real with each other, and they always kind of are able to check each other in different ways. But I think Jerry needs this a lot more. So, in a world where everyone's kind of BSing each other all the time, they're both able to kind of keep each other in check. So I like that. But it kind of comes to a head in this conversation where, Rod is asking him, how's your marriage? Are you happy? What are you doing? What are you doing right now? Why did you get married? He asked him all these very real questions in such a blunt way. And I think Jerry needs that kind of communication so badly to kind of wake himself up and start thinking about okay, what do I want? What am I doing? And I think we all need that at different points in life, but that's something that I think really resonated with me. And then I think if I had to go for a third moment, I might pick towards the end after that moment where Rod gets he gets hit really hard. He catches a touchdown to win a game to send them to the playoffs, but he gets flipped over, lands on his head, and Jerry rushes down. Obviously, at that point, he cares a lot about Rod. Um, you see kind of all of his emotion coming through and like how much he actually cares. It's not just about the paycheck anymore. It's not just about his business or how he kind of appears to the world around him. It's just about like that relationship that he's built. And he ends up having a conversation with Regina King on the phone, and he's just kind of like, oh, it's okay, we have to be calm, this and that, like kind of in his emotionally closed off sort of way, just like not. And she's again very real with him, and just like all this is about, like, I need to know if my husband's okay, like this is everything to me. And I think that kind of clicks something in his mind, like, what is everything to me? Like, what do I care about? Like, what do I have this feeling about in my life? And I really enjoy that conversation. I think she's an amazing actor. Like, as we talked about, I think she's very talented. And she's good throughout the movie. And she's just really kind of a rock. And I think, uh, you know, their relationship is kind of something to aspire to for people. They're really just there for each other. They support each other, and just genuinely love each other. So it kind of shines through in that moment when he's hurting and she's talking to Jerry. So, yeah, there's a lot of moments I really love, but those are three. I always kind of look for what resonates with me emotionally in movies. A lot of the movies I love are the most kind of affecting in that way. So those are kind of three that stand out from that perspective.
Yeah, and I agree. Those are some great moments. And referring to Regina King, she absolutely killed it in this whole movie. I think she had a little extra help. She cheated a little bit, but she absolutely killed it. We'll explain when we get to the trivia. So by now you've already guessed what I'm going to refer to as when I say she cheated. But the other thing was that I think, like, referring to back, that there was a powerful moment when he had called Mrs. Tillman to talk about the concussion, because I thought that it was great that the first thing he thought to do was to call her, because nobody else is going to call her. So it's up to him to call her, let her know. And she is freaking out. But I don't think that he was being closed off when he was telling her to calm down. I think it's two things. I think it's like, what do you say to somebody in that moment? It's like, it's like, cause you can't necessarily reassure them that, like, he's going to be okay, because you're not a doctor and you're not really there. And like, you're just as worried and messed up about it as you are, but, or as they are. Like, so you're both basically, in a bad place where you don't want to say like the wrong thing, or at the same time, you don't want to give them false hope. So the best he could do is to tell her to calm down and be strong for her family, because she knows that her family is freaking out. Like, when he took the hit and she got up and she wanted to knock his brother out, because his brother was like completely just completely out of pocket with his comments, right? Like, insensitive, not reading the room, right? Just I told him he was too small.
That to me was bordering on like not believe. I was like, no one in their right mind would say that in that moment. But like,
you have to understand how some family members are. And I was like, I definitely see that. And well, let's just say I see it in my family.
That's fair.
So, going over to some of my parts, I mean, that's definitely one of them, but that's not one of the ones I picked. I did pick the one when, the conversation he had with the little kid. So that was specifically, when the kid said, fuck you, Jerry. And then he turned around again and gave him the finger, like to emphasize the point, because he was trying to get Jerry to get him to stop his father from playing hockey. Like, come on, dude. It's like, you can't. And Jerry was like, well, he's built like a Chuck. Nothing could stop your dad. It's like, no, that's not what the kid was saying. He's past the fairy tale at this point. Like, this is something that Jerry probably told the kid like years ago when the kid was a lot younger and could believe everything. But now the kid is a little bit more savvy. So he knows that this is real. Like he knows that his father should not be playing hockey anymore. His father can't take another concussion. So he's looking to Jerry to tell his father to stop. And Jerry won't do it because Jerry is not, he's being selfish basically and self-centered. So he doesn't see it from the kids or the family's perspective. He learns to be able to do that at the end of the movie. But at that point, it's like he's not thinking clearly, I guess. One of my favorite parts is like when Cuba Gooding Jr., when he enters the chat, when you see him for the first time and he's talking, Jerry is trying to call him to stay with Jerry, because Jerry is being fired from his job. Actually, when he got fired, another great point. But specifically when he's calling Cuba and he's got all of his clients on the phone, you can see the lights blinking on the phone, and he's trying to, get Cuba's commitment or get Tillman's commitment to stay with them. And at the same time, get him off the phone so he can talk to his other clients. And while his star client, it's going to turn out to be a star client, is talking to him on the phone, he's losing clients right on the phone. You can see the lights are going out, and Rod Tillwell just won't stop talking. He just won't stop talking. Just keep going on and on. And it's like just some of the stuff that was just coming out of his mouth. It was just amazing.
He has so much energy in that performance, and I feel like it comes through every time he's on the screen, and it's just like really infectious. Like he's such a fun character. Like,
I'm not used to seeing him so excited and animated like that. Like he was on fire with that, especially in that first appearance. He was just going off. And then that's obviously when the great line, "Show me the money." When that comes out, he's like, I need you to scream it, Jerry.
Classic.
And yeah, absolutely. And then later on, he has a line. It's not part of that same scene, but I like this line. He said, "If I gotta ride your ass like Zorro."
That's a great scene.
So, and then I guess, my favorite parts it was just basically Tom Cruise and Cuba Gooding Jr. Because, and the last one that I have is, when they're in the bathroom or in the shower and Tidewell, he's completely naked, talking about he air dries, and they're having this argument, over because, Jerry's trying to get Rod to basically be more, I don't know, amicable.
Not himself. Like,
like, maybe not himself, but I don't know, calm down, be less arrogant, be more personable, right? So that he's marketable. He's trying to get Rod so that Rod is marketable, so he can get these deals with like advertisers and things like that, and try to get him a better contract with his team. And then that's when Rob was like, you want me to dance? I'm not going to dance. And all of that stuff. But in that particular scene, when they have that argument, I think that's when it comes out, when Jerry says, "Help me help you. Help me help you." Yep. Like I like that particular performance from Tom Cruise, because it's like you can see, it's like the perfect picture of frustration. And I truly enjoyed that. That was because I felt that before. I felt that frustration when I'm trying to get across to somebody and they're not. It's like they're unwilling to cooperate. And it's like,
you're at your wit's end. Like, there's a lot of really like relatable moments in this movie, I think, from a variety of perspectives. I think that's one of the things that makes it so good. Like, yeah.
So, those are my three. I guess honorable mention, anytime that Tom Cruise interacted with Lipsnicki, the little kid that played Ray, that's just fun. It's just fun seeing them, that chemistry between man and child, like because children are fun.
Especially the part where Cruise is there and he's drunk and the kid comes out when he was sleeping.
And
they're just talking, and it's like Jerry's like just kind of talking to him about life and all kinds of stuff, and he's like, "Oh, thanks for listening, man. Like, no one ever listens to me." And you can tell like he has all this stuff to say that he's probably just keeps inside, and he's just telling it to this kid, but he just like appreciates that little thing. I thought that was a nice moment.
Right. That was nice. And then he was like, the kid was like, I gotta go to bed. My mom's coming. I gotta go to bed.
Yeah. He's hilarious.
Right. That's all great. So those were our top 3 moments of this movie. So let's move over to the trivia.
Yeah, so we have a trivia top 10 here, so kind of some fun little tidbits. So one is Jonathan Lipnicki showed up day one to the set telling everybody that the human head weighs 8 pounds, and the director Cameron Crowe liked that so much that he actually ended up putting it into the script.
Yeah.
Funny little thing he kind of says. So
yeah, kids are like that. I don't know where he found that fact out, and he wanted everyone to know this.
Now the whole world knows.
Right, and now the whole world knows. So, Crowe's friends told him that Tom Cruise would, quote, never play a loser, end quote. Turns out Cruise was dying to portray a character that was on the ropes. And it's kind of true that almost every time you see Tom Cruise, he's like the best at what he does, or where it's like, whether it's Mission Impossible or in The Vampire Lestat, he was like the best vampire in
Top Gun, Maverick.
Yeah, Top Gun. He's like the best fighter pilot. Like and then it's like even in well, you mentioned Top Gun Maverick. I was thinking about Top Gun, but like in Top Gun, he's the best. Well, actually, he's not even the best in Top Gun, which is an interesting term, but at the very least, he's one of the best. Because remember in Top Gun, he didn't actually graduate as Top Gun. It was Iceman.
Yeah.
But then in Maverick, it's like he's like a superhero. He's better than best, right? He's
the best pilot ever.
Right. He's better than your mama, right?
Yeah.
So
I'd say in Top Gun,
awesome.
Like he might not be the best technically, but he has like that X factor. Like he'll just do whatever. He's just like so on the edge. And that's what makes him stand out. But yeah.
Right. I think something happened where it kind of put him out of the competition or whatever, where he got edged out by Iceman. But yeah, that's correct. But anyway, it like when he's playing a lawyer, he's like the absolute best lawyer. So I guess that's why they had this notion that he would never play a loser. But yeah, he was even in this film, he was the best until he got himself fired. Until he grew a conscience. It's like you can't be the best if you have a conscience.
Yeah, it's a funny point because actually one of my favorite movies he's ever done is Edge of Tomorrow. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes.
And like he's a loser there. Like he's not likable. And like the way that story is set up, like his growth is so cool to me. But he's genuinely just like kind of a weasel. And I like seeing him in that role. So yeah, it's another one I love. But
yeah, that's great. Every time I'm scrolling through like my streaming services and that comes up, I'm like, I should watch that. And I don't. But I do love that movie.
Yeah.
There's constantly been rumors about them making a sequel to that one. And I'm here for it. I hope if they do a sequel that it's like the greatest sequel ever. But that's a great movie. Agreed.
Another piece of trivia here: the scene where Jerry, that we were just talking about, where Jerry and Ray Boyd are talking in the living room for the first time, it was basically completely ad-libbed. So the director Cameron Crowe wanted to create kind of a genuine feel between the two, and he did that by not having written dialogue for the scene. So what you're seeing there is kind of off the cuff. So that, it's probably one of the reasons that scene is so effective.
Yeah, absolutely. They did an excellent job. That's some professional. What do you call that? It's on stage they call it. Oh, I forgot. There's like I can't remember. It's gone. It's gone now. I had it. It was in my hand. It's something that comedians do. Comedians talk about it all the time, and I listen to a lot of improv. There you go. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I was thinking about it too.
That was some outstanding improv they did. All right, on to the next one. 2 lines from this movie: "Show me the money" and "You had me at hello" are in the AFI's top 100 movie quotes at numbers 25 and 52 respectively. Here's what I didn't realize. I didn't know. I didn't realize that You Had Me at Hello was from this particular movie. I thought it was from an earlier movie. I thought they were borrowing that line from a different movie. And so when I would hear it referenced in different TV shows and movies, I thought they were talking about like maybe a black and white movie. For some reason, I'm thinking of something that starred Humphrey Bogart or something. But no, it's from this movie. It's from Jerry Maguire. And I was like, oh, okay, that's totally awesome. But show me the money is my line.
Gotcha. Yeah, You Had Me at Hello is always the back half of the You Complete Me, and I always thought her delivery is very interesting. Like it's like a unique delivery. It's kind of hard to explain, but it works. It just always was a little different feeling to me. I don't know how to describe it.
I think it's different because she actually didn't hear anything that he said, right? After he came into the house, it was like the sound went out and he was just kind of moving his lips, and she's kind of shocked that he came, that he showed up at the house. I think that's what it was. She was kind of in shock.
Yeah.
So the only thing that she could think of what to say was, "You had me at hello." I think I have something else about that where she had mentioned a line, but we'll continue until we run into it.
Gotcha. So next, touching on Regina King, she was legitimately pregnant at the time of filming for the movie. It was written for the second act, but you can see the tricks in the final scenes after McCree has given birth. She's only shot from the chest up and has a lot of close-ups and wears baggy jeans and jerseys to hide the bump.
Yeah, so what's funny is that, well, I don't know how they got away with that scene when she attacks her brother, because she wasn't hiding. Or her brother-in-law, because I mean, I guess it was the baggy clothes, because this is presumably after she gave birth. But that's what I meant by when I said that she was cheating. She's a cheater cheat. She cheated because she used the extra hormones from the pregnancy to aid her performance. Like nobody else. Yeah. And it totally worked, because it's like the emotion that she put forth in that performance really came through. It was spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely.
At one point during filming, Cameron Crowe heard that Cuba Gooding Jr. was too small by the standards of most NFL receivers. So a line about Rod being too small was written into the film. So I also saw that there's actually like a couple of like wide receivers like he played that were like kind of small, but they were also championship football players. But the same concern was given to them. Like they might be too small. When they get hit, they might break, and then you don't have a wide receiver anymore. So yeah, it was like and I didn't catch that when I originally watched the movie, because like I told you, I'm not a sports dude, so I wouldn't know. I think that the one thing is that I assume that all football players are gigantic, but I guess you're only gigantic in certain positions. Like like I guess the fullbacks and like maybe the quarterback. The quarterback can be a small dude, but sometimes the quarterback is like a big dude. And then some of the running backs, they tend to be a little bit slimmer. They have a sprinter's build. But I never considered that, like, I think in this movie he played that 5'10", that
wide receiver.
That's too small. 5'10" or 5'9", that's too small. And I never considered that. And so Cameron Crowe had put that in the movie to make sure people made reference to that. It's like, I know this dude is small, so I want people to acknowledge that. And then, like, throughout the film, he's being called shrimp, right? So to hammer the point home. And I think that was the impetus for him getting hit and him being knocked unconscious at the end of the movie, is that, you know, that he was small, that might be his downfall.
Yeah, it definitely makes it tougher in the NFL. And it's funny, I know you're not a big sports, but he reminds me of one of my favorite receivers growing up, Steve Smith. Played very much the same, small guy, huge heart, talked a lot, would really get on people's skin, but he's a Hall of Fame receiver. I love him. So he really reminds me of Steve here. But yeah, it's you know, it's kind of nice. It makes it that kind of underdog feeling when he's a little smaller. So I don't think it's unbelievable.
No, it's totally believable. It's like, but I wouldn't have caught it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I got you. Next up, we have Crowe really did write out that entire 27-page mission statement. That kind of is as I talked about before, kind of the impetus for the whole story kicking off, which I think is really cool because that's, then that's kind of the passion that stands out to Renee Zellweger's character that kind of inspires her to follow him as well. So
Right. It's like, actually, the funny thing is that most of the people in his office were inspired by that. But the problem was that that's not the ethos that they could follow in order to be successful, or in their minds. It's like in their minds, it's as many athletes that you can get for as much money as you can get. That's their entire thing. And his mission statement kind of boils down to fewer athletes and less money. And that's like the antithesis of what the entire company was doing. And so that's really what got him fired. But Renee Zellweger's character, she was totally inspired by this. She completely believed that what this statement said. So that's why she was the only person from the whole office, besides the goldfish, that went with him after he got fired.
Yeah.
So Cuba Gooding Jr. first read his part with Robin Williams. He thought that Robin was playing the lead, but Robin was only subbing as a favor. Oh man, I would have been so jacked if I was reading with Robin Williams. That would have been so cool.
And I would be interested to see that version of this movie. I mean, I know it's a complete hypothetical, but would have been very different. But probably still pretty good, I think. Just very different.
They had a lot of people that they had considered for lead actor in this film, and they had a lot of people that they considered for Cuba Gooding Jr.'s part, but they ended up with Tom Cruise and him. So, but they definitely nailed it. I think that I read that the part was originally written for Tom Hanks, but by the time Crowe had finished the movie, he felt that Tom Hanks was too old, so he went with the younger Tom Cruise. And I don't agree. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, they weren't. I just had a flash, like, were they in the same movie? But I don't remember them being in the same movie. But I don't think, because I don't see there being an age limit on being a sports agent. I think it's actually leads credence to the story of a sports agent having a breakdown and wanting to change his life at an older age rather than a younger age. But this. This was great. This is Tom Cruise is one of his best movies, so I'm not going to take that away from him.
Absolutely. Also, the Cardinals Cowboys game that they show at the end of the movie was actually an ABC Monday Night Football game from Christmas Day in 1995. In the movie, the Cardinals win, but in real life, the Cowboys stomped them. It was 37-13. So
yeah,
change there.
Like an unforgiving loss, right?
That's a beatdown for sure.
Right. And I also enjoy, like, I find it easier to watch films that are about real football teams, like that are in the NFL, than rather than they make up a league and they make up teams. It's a little bit harder to watch.
It feels
it
has that authenticity that
Right. It's like there's one more layer of disbelief that you have to apply when you watch the movie. I mean, but it doesn't. It's not much. It's like it's not much for me to get past it. Like in the Last Boy Scouts, I know that they had to you create their own league and their own teams. And that's one of my favorite movies. But I do think about that when I think about the Last Boy Scouts.
Another one that jumps to mind is, I know in Dark Knight Rises, they actually had like the entire Steelers actual team play Gotham's football team, which was kind of crazy.
Right. But I don't think
think of that.
Right. But I think that they must have had created their own name, or were they going as the Steelers?
No, they were the Gotham whatever.
Right.
But it was funny to see those guys and be like, huh, like that's Ben Roethlisberger or whatever. But,
Right. So finally, the film story is reportedly based on real life agent Lee Steinberg. Lee, I'm going to go with Lee, makes a cameo in the film as Troy Aikman's agent, which he is in real life. So that's interesting. So is this saying that Lee Steinberg had an emotional breakdown and wanted to work with less athletes and make less money. I don't know. I don't know if that's what it's saying. Is it saying that Lee Steinberg wrote a 27-page mission statement to his company before he was fired? Like, they're not telling me what part of this movie is taken from his life. And this is all alleged. And it's not like there's a blurb that says based on a true story or whatever. Yeah. But there may have been something about the way Steinberg had did business that inspired Crow to write this movie. And I guess I'll go with that.
Yeah, it makes me want to look into his life, honestly. Just out of curiosity. Like, I feel like that's would be interesting to learn about him, especially as, I mean, Troy Aikman's a Hall of Fame quarterback, so I would be interested to hear about his agent.
Right. Also, I had also meant to mention something about You Had Me at Hello. I thought I put it in the trivia, but I didn't. So Renee Zellweger did not understand this line when she saw it in the script. She thought it was a mistake because it's like, these words don't make any sense. And I guess Crow was like, just trust me, just say it with emotion. Trust me, it'll work out. And I guess she realized it later on. But that was the funny thing about that line. And that could have contributed why it said so weird, because
the delivery,
right. She had no idea what she was saying. It didn't make any sense to her. Like, when you read the lines, it's out of context, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Hey, it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out. So that's it for the trivia. And our final segment, we're going to see what the critics thought. So the critics gave it an 84%. Audience had it at 79 on Rotten Tomatoes, and IMDb reviews, you have a 7.3 out of 10. Now, I know there's some controversy with Rotten Tomatoes. I've been gone for a while, but I've heard the controversies, and all I will say is that I don't think that the scores on Rotten Tomatoes affect the films that much. That are you familiar with the news article that had been going around? I think it's by I can't even remember who wrote the article or what publication it was from, but I'm sure you're familiar with this controversy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, it's kind of like implied that they were, sort of sliding money to some people, like, for reviews, and it's kind of implied that the review will be positive or, this and that. Which, like, I mean, first of all, who's shocked? I mean, that's just humanity, I think. But I do, Rotten Tomatoes is okay, I think, for a general sense. And I also do like seeing audience scores. I think it's interesting. And
I agree.
Yeah. And kind of the comparison of the two scores is fun to look at. But I'm not going to, there's movies I love that Rotten Tomatoes says are terrible, and I don't particularly care.
Right. I definitely disagree a lot with Rotten Tomatoes on certain projects. And I think what it is that, certain films focus on certain audiences. Like, for example, a Tyler Perry film is going to focus on a particular demographics. So the critics are going to hate this movie that Tyler Perry made.
But they're not in the demographic.
Huh?
If the movie's not for you.
Right. That is correct. The movie's not for that particular demographic. And many critics don't fit that demographic. So that's why it fits a low score. Or I think there was an animated film, or maybe it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that the one that just came out.
I made a video about the Mario movie, because it's like, you have 70-year-old critics who have never played a video game in their life. Like, this is bad. Like, you don't know what are you looking for? Like, what are you expecting it to be? I was annoyed about that. But
I think a lot of it is that it's definitely fan service, and I haven't seen it yet, but I kind of get the gist of what was going on. So they were playing to the audience that they knew was going to watch the movie. You have a movie called Super Mario Brothers. So they're going to put all of the references from all the Super Mario games that they could possibly fit in. And if you haven't played, or you're not familiar with what's going on in Super Mario Brothers, you're just not going to get it. Like, I haven't played all of the Super Mario Brothers, so I'm not familiar with all the suits that he wears. Like, I know that he has I think there's a raccoon suit or something like that. But I don't think I played a game where he had the raccoon suit, right? So I'm not going to be familiar with that, but I understand that that's part of the mythos and whatnot. So you're not going to be able to please the critics. You have to basically play to your audience. And then we saw that it worked, because it's $1 billion movie, and that it's for a certain audience. But the other thing is that, like you alluded to, it was actually a company that was hired to try to goose, like the studio hired this company to goose the what you call it. So they had one example. Apparently there have been a number of movies that have taken this service, but there was one example that they chose. So it was a movie that Ridley was in, the Ridley that was in Star Wars. I can't remember. Nope, I can't remember her first name. But
Daisy. Daisy Ridley.
Yeah, Daisy Ridley. So it's a movie that she had starred in. It was a really small film. If you haven't, it's a movie that you probably haven't heard of. I can't remember the name of it. So what happened was the studio that produced this film, they hired this company to find critics that would write nice things about it and publish the nice reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. And then if they had like negative reviews, they would encourage them not to publish their bad reviews on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever. And so when the film was first released, it got a score of like 58 or 57. But then after the company intervened, it shot up to like 60, which made it fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. The thing is that this movie was not any more successful after getting like a score of 60 on Rotten Tomatoes. Like it wasn't any more the only thing that it did for the movie is like with its original score of 57, there weren't any US studios that were willing to release this movie in the US. But after it got a score of 60, then there was one or some other studio that decided to release this movie in the US. And that was really the only advantage that goosing the scores had caused. But like you, I pay more attention to the audience score than a critic score.
I will say another issue I have just quickly is I think in today's world, everyone with, whether it be movies, TV, video games, books, whatever, like whatever you like, everyone wants to hear that something's like the best thing ever or terrible. There's no middle ground. There's no like nuance. And that's like, that system is literally designed that it's rotten or it's fresh. And that's what you see. That's the takeaway. And it's like, I just think having that two class like classification is just kind of whack and like makes people think in this way that like gets into those over emotional reactions and like stuff like that, where like either they feel like they have to defend something because everyone's saying it's terrible, or they feel like they have to tear it down because everyone thinks it's the best. It's just like why not have some kind of middle ground? I don't know. I think it just kind of perpetuates that.
Right. I understand how people might feel, but it is on a scale. Like they might denote something as being rotten or fresh, but it is a scale. It's like, it's a percentage. It's like it goes from 0% all the way to 100%. So there might be a 50% film or a 70% film. It's not that much different from IMDb reviews or Metacritic or some of the other aggregated critical scores out there. I mean, saying something is rotten or fresh is kind of like a fun way of talking about the movie. But like the main thing on the score is the sliding scale and then the audience score, which is, which, like I say, is the most useful factor, because when I'm looking at the audience score, I'm thinking, what are my people talking about this movie? Because I know that the people that are writing reviews and are seeing this movie are the same audience that I'm probably a part of to go watch the movie.
Yeah, and the people willing to write an audience review probably had some type of strong reaction, whether it be positive or negative, and like, they're probably part of the target market, so it's a little more relevant to me than the critics. I mean,
oh man, you've got to have a strong reaction to come out of a movie theater and then pull out your phone and then go on the internet and then start signing in and typing all of your thoughts on the movie and then, and then uploading it. That's some strong reactions right there. All right, let's.
Not something I do, but
I know, right?
People are all about it.
So let's get into what the critics thought.
Yeah, so Dwayne Burge from The Hollywood Reporter said, on the jock front, Gooding is so believable in his role as Jerry's selfish, pea-brained wide receiver client that the Dallas Cowboys might consider signing him to complement Michael Irvin. I think that's a little harsh on Rod.
I think so. I thought the exact same thing, because
think he's pea-brained at all.
He has a degree in marketing. Wasn't he paying attention? Like both he and his wife has a degree in marketing, so he's not a pea-brain. He's just bombastic and
he's emotional.
Showboat. I mean, right, emotional. Yeah. Right.
So it's kind of a strange take there, but Paul Tatara from CNN.com said Cruise is very good in small moments with Dorothy's son, played charmingly by Jonathan Lipnicki. But in some of the bigger scenes, his performance is so wrong-headed, you can't imagine what he was thinking. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't agree. I don't. I don't have all of the review. I guess if I had all of the review, I would have more context.
Yeah.
But so this is just so I guess I would probably need some examples of what he's talking about. But I didn't have any problems with any part of Tom Cruise's performance. I thought it was like everything that he did seemed believable to me because, sometimes when something emotional happens, you act out. When something strong happens or something significant happens in your life, you start acting out. So when reading this in my mind, I'm imagining like when he got fired and how he was acting out as he was leaving the office. Maybe that's one of the incidents that he's talking about. But I can imagine myself acting like that.
Yeah, I'm sure tons of people had that's. And I thought that the scene where he in the restaurant where he actually gets fired, that scene is really, really strong. Like I think that was a great moment. How he kind of just like you can tell he just like shuts down and like focuses in and like I mean I've definitely been let go from jobs before and it's a very like kind of shaking moment, especially if you're like at kind of a turning point in your career. So I think that scene was really, really strong. But yeah, I didn't think his reaction in the office was that crazy. Like there would be a lot of emotion coming out of him, especially from something he like clearly poured his entire life into.
Right.
Helped establish. Like I don't know.
And then the other one I can think of is the confrontation in the bathroom. I listed it as one of my favorite parts with Cuba Gooding Jr. Well, a shower, not a bathroom, I guess. But he was super emotional trying to talk to his only client, trying to get his client to help him out. Like he was going through a lot at that moment. And I think that's a huge moment where basically Tom Cruise is acting out. And I think that worked extremely well. And maybe this is not something that Dwayne liked. I don't know.
Because I think also he kind of holds a lot of stuff in and doesn't really say what he's actually thinking a lot of the time because he's always like putting on this persona. And I feel like he holds so much in. And like there's little moments where it kind of all like fumbles out of him and he doesn't really have control over it. But I think that's very real. Like there are a lot of people like that. So
Right. Yeah. Moving right along, Mark Brunson from Film Frenzy wrote, for all of its salient points about surviving in the 90s workplace and rediscovering the true measure of success, the film is ultimately an old-fashioned love story. And yeah, that's true. I don't think either of us had focused on that when we were talking about our favorite parts of the movie, but there were a lot of great moments with Renee Zellweger and Tom Cruise. It's funny because in a movie like this, people talk about chemistry between the lead actors, and I can never clock that. And even now, it's like, well, they look good together, and some people might say, well, I don't think they have chemistry. Not about this particular movie, but in other movies that when they talk about love stories or whatever. But I can never say that. I'm not a reliable judge on chemistry between two people. I have a tendency to just take it as it is. So, but I guess I can say that this really did the two characters were particularly close. So I think I can say that works for me. And it's also, I feel like it's like two love stories, like the one between the Tillmans, what are the names? The Tillwards, Tillmans,
I think Tillmans.
Tillmans. Hold on. Let me look this up because it's going to bother me for the end of the podcast. Tidwells. So the love affair between the love affair between the Tidwells, how they basically kind of carried on like newlyweds. And you kind of contrast that between Tom Cruise character and Renee Zellweger's. I think that helps the story along.
I agree.
So finally, Jeff Andrews from Time Out wrote, lauded as a witty moral fable with a revelatory performance from its star, this romantic comedy is, in fact, meticulous. I think that's what that's supposed to say. Manipulative and reactionary. It's a lot when people say that a movie is manipulative because that's kind of the job of the movie. That's kind of like what it's supposed to do. So I never understood that that criticism, and I don't understand what he means reactionary. But that was, I guess I would need to be higher minded to understand this particular criticism. But that's, I guess
it's almost like saying it's too sappy, like too melodramatic. But I mean, it's a love story. I don't know. I think it's very much in the style of the time.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's kind of the feel of, I don't know. And like you said, I mean, isn't that the goal of any movie, to manipulate the audience in its own intended way?
Maybe if it's too obvious in its manipulation. And I guess that all comes down to subjectivity. It's like some people are more, I guess, sensitive to when they feel like they're being manipulated than other people. So it's just like humor. I think that sort of thing is subjective. So in a situation like this, your miles may vary.
Yeah. I think some people have that feeling when they watch like Pixar movies. Like for me, people love Inside Out. When I watch Inside Out, I feel like there's like a cue card being held up. Like, okay, now laugh, now cry. I'm just like, all right. Like,
right.
I like a little more subtlety. Like, I don't know. Like I love soul. I like something that makes you, like, lets you feel things at your own pace. But this is just it's a love story within, you know, the rest of the story. So like, it is what it is.
Right.
I get the gist of it.
Right. I think the best example is the first few minutes of Up. People always point to that as being so emotionally impactful. It's like, and I think in the way Up does it, you don't really see it coming. Like, you don't see like the end of the short story at the beginning of the film. And it's like, oh, she died? That's unfair. You tricked me.
Yeah. I mean, it is effective, and everyone remembers that. So definitely it worked.
Yeah, it definitely worked. So we've talked about the critics. So finally, Jerry Maguire. Am I reading this correctly? Jerry Maguire, that's what I'm supposed to say, is, as of this recording, available on Peacock. That's it for today. We're going to start off slowly. So we're going to start off bi-weekly or every other week. So in this case, the next episode will be the Monday after the next. That'll put us squarely in October. So logically, that means that the next episode will be Alien, starring Sigourney Weaver. Follow us on Twitter, Blue Sky, or TikTok at Backlick Cinema, or on Facebook, Instagram, or Threads at Backlick Cinema Podcast. Don't forget that you can contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlickcinema.com. So, Dan, do you have any additional plugs?
No, outside of what we talked about earlier with the TikTok and Instagram, just the podcast, really. Again, you can find us on Spotify, Goodwill Podcasting, every other week as well, and that's about it.
Awesome. So, and when you said Real Takes, that's REEL.TAKES, is that correct?
So on TikTok, it's REEL.takes, and on Instagram, you can just search for Real Takes, REEL, and it should show up.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure I have the details of where you can find those links in the show notes. So one last time, if you like the show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlick Cinema, the podcast. And I know you've enjoyed our guest, Dan, so please check out Real Takes at real.takes on TikTok. Believe me, it matters. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe. Share a movie from yesteryear with your family. Hug your loved ones. And if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.